Shahim wanted us to look at Attacq. Now, all the real estate, some of the property shares are in bear market territory. They've plummeted. They are finding a low base. Some of them are even making new lows. But we can see on the Attacq graph, if I zoom back to around March 2015, that this share is at one very low levels, around 14 Rand, but has been finding support there since around October 2018. And what is positive about this graph is that the share, every time there's some selling pressure, could find buyers to support the share price. They're around 14 Rand, 13.97, and that is seen as positive. However, this critical level is this 40-week moving average, and see how closely that is waiting to that strong trend line that I've drawn in here from that has kept the momentum to the bottom in place since March 2018. And that 40-week moving average is waiting at 15 Rand 10. If that level changes into a support and remains one, we can say that the turnaround in the candle has been confirmed and the overall downtrend has turned around, maybe for more upside. What I also see here is that level around 1549 was previously tested a couple of times and remained a resistance. 4 weeks in December, tested it, retraced. It did change that level there around 1540 into a support in a couple of weeks in January and February, but could not find enough buyers to keep the share price above this 40-week moving average and retraced again. So this share must change this 15 Rand 30 into a support and keep it one. So this zone there around 1510 and this upper band there around 1550 is critical levels that the share needs to keep a support in order for me to believe that it might be a beautiful turnaround story and we can see higher levels. This lower band around 14 is a critical level. And Shahim, this dragonfly candle is my optimistic candle. That was a candle that says to me, Christelle, despite all the weakness, there was buyers that was prepared to take the share price to higher levels despite the low. And a dragonfly candle is one of my turnaround candles. That is a candle that highlights, despite the fact that the low was around 1351, the buyers could reach that share and push it up to close it around 1405. And we know that the only thing that lifts a share price is more buyers. And the only thing that takes a share price to lower levels is more sellers. So this candle, this dragonfly candle, and remember, the name of the dragonfly is like a dragonfly that flies over water and nips on the water and drinks the water and drinks a little bit more until its tummy is full, and then it flies away up into the sky. And that is the dragonfly candle. So when the buyer starts to nibble and buy, that share price will eventually continue to accumulate and rise for higher levels. So Shahim, if you want to preempt it, and if you want to be a little bit maybe early, I would accumulate around these levels. But my stop loss would be around 14 Rand. Or if you say, Christelle, that's maybe too close, I would use that low there of 1351 as a stop loss level. And even if you maybe just want to trade it for the bounce, towards this 40-week moving average waiting at 1510, I mean, nothing wrong with that because my share is in oversold territory. So that oversold territory means the probability of the share to reach for higher levels is more likely. And my two moving averages have crossed one another to the upside, and that is seen as positive. So with a dragonfly candle combined with oversold territory terrain and a break to the upside on my averages tells me that, hey, this might be an opportunity to have a look at and start to accumulate. Shahim, I always warn, make sure your position size is not too much. Make sure you do have a risk strategy in place and not put too much money in one share because shares are risky. The other thing I just want to highlight about Attacq is that at some stage it did trade around 28 Rand. So if you are a long-term investor, I'm talking about a 5-year plus plan, and you want to accumulate around these levels, and you think that eventually the share price and the real estate property and development in South Africa will turn around, this is maybe a share to have a look at for the long term. Weight Watchers. John, I looked at this share and have been for a while because it kept on making the one low after the other. And I mean, and when that share changed in September 28 in the 40-week moving average into a resistance, it tried for about 5 weeks in a row to change it into support. Despite the extremely oversold terrain, it just kept on finding sellers to take the share to new lows. And we can see here, and it's also a reminder for us that indicators sometimes can stay in oversold territory and the share price can continue to decline. There's no such thing as a perfect indicator. And indicators are just tools to highlight probability for us. What is the likelihood of the share to reach for higher levels? What is the likelihood of the share to retrace? So the stochastic indicator remained in oversold territory from about August 2018 to around March, April 2019, and it continued to reach for lower levels from $71 all the way down to $17, and it remained oversold. And yes, there were times where my indicators, two moving averages, crossed one another to the upside, but the candles were the key because that is the price action of the share, and that highlights what the informed capital think of the share. And we can see it's the one bear candle after the other. Yes, this might have been a possible hammer candle that was a turnaround with a bullish engulfing candle. So yes, investors might have seen this consolidation band here and say, hey, it's an oversold territory. I have a possible hammer. Let me start to accumulate the share. But no, the share found more sellers and plummeted to lower levels. But if your position size was small enough or you used a stop loss, you could protect your capital and waited for another consolidation phase before you got in again. So there's two things that I find optimistic and positive about the Weight Watchers graph at this stage, John. One, it's still in oversold territory. Two, my indicators did break upwards. The two moving averages did break upwards. And three, since about February 29th, the 25th of February 2019, that week, up until this week, the share has managed to find this range there are between $18.86 and $17.40 a support. And that is seen as positive. And then the other positive thing for me is the fact that this falling wedge has changed this upper band into a support. And that happened in the week of the 8th of April. And a falling wedge is a positive formation. So the difference between a falling wedge and a falling channel is in the case of a wedge, the mouth of the downside is a bit smaller than the tail. Where in the case of a channel, the width of the tail is almost the same as the mouth. So I call this a wedge because the mouth becomes smaller than the actual tail. But in actual fact, it implies the same. When the upper band changes into a support, it highlights that, hey, there's a possibility that this share might turn around to higher levels. But we can see in the week of the 29th of April, the share tested again a critical resistance of around $24.37 and retraced from it. And this week, and I just want to zoom it out, is a doji candle. A doji candle highlights indecision. It tells you that the buyers and sellers are looking each other in the eye and not sure what they want to do and who's going to punch one another in the face first. So if that level there around $24.30 changes into a support, we can assume that the share price has found value above that and that the buyers think that, hey, this might be a beautiful turnaround story. Obviously, the stop loss or protection level that you can use is around $17.60, or even maybe this lower band there around $14.65. But I think when we look at this share and where it's come from, it's trading around the same levels it did here in 2017, May 2017. And if you believe that, the world is going to become more health conscious and Weight Watchers has got the right plan to get people to become more healthy, this is maybe a share to have a look at, John. I want to look at and close the session with Amazon because this is a share that I keep on looking at for several reasons. One, because we want to highlight that a share can continue to build on a possible head and shoulder. And that idea of the negativity was wiped off the table when that resistance there around $1,776 changed into a support. Because we did say that there was a possible head and shoulder, a small left shoulder, massive head, found support again on the neckline around the same levels of where that left shoulder started, found a little bit of a bounce, and then continued to reach to higher levels. And when this previous resistance found support there again, we could assume that the negativity around it was wiped off. You could even maybe draw in the neckline a little bit more skew and say, Christelle, maybe this was another, excuse me, right shoulder. Because yes, a head and shoulder, excuse me, a head and shoulder formation can have multiple right shoulders. But the critical level was around this resistance of about $1,778. But my next key, or my next line in the sand that I'm looking at is, one, the share needs to change this level of around $2,050, the previous high that was done on the 3rd of September 2018, into a support. But I can see now for 2 consecutive weeks, the share could not change even the level around 1,964 level into a support. And that is seen as critical. Like in the previous case of Anglo Gold, if a share cannot change the previous high into a support again and find enough buyers to reach it to higher levels, it is a concern. And this dragonfly doji candle highlights selling pressures. So I can only be optimistic and continue to be optimistic about Amazon when that level there around $1,960 changes into a support again. But at the moment, with the overbought indicator and this dragonfly doji, gravestone doji candle, I expect Amazon to maybe retrace. And the levels to the bottom is 1879, 1821, and then this critical resistance level that might have now changed into resistance again is 1779. For more information about our services, please visit our website www.fransklerk.com. Have a fabulous day. Cheers.